TessPay is a blockchain-based payment settlement system making extensive use of smart contracts within the TessPay IBM blockchain to provide payment assurance, liquidity, speeding settlement, and generally making the whole process more efficient and less costly. Automated daily settlements guarantee that carriers get paid on time every time. Well, for Tier 1 carriers, they get fraud mitigation, settlement efficiency, and a more stable source of supply. Whereas for Tier 2 and 3 carriers, they get payment assurance and liquidity. Take an example of, let's say, an AT&T subscriber calling from San Francisco to a caller in London, England. So the call would first go to AT&T's cell tower or a landline network, depending on how the call was actually placed. Then the call would arrive at AT&T's core network. At that point, the network would make a routing decision and try and find a termination partner for the UK. So let's call that supplier A in this example. So supplier A, when the call is received through its network, would make a similar routing decision, pass it on to supplier B, and so on down the line until it reaches the final termination point in the UK. Wholesale telecom is actually a combination of telecom and finance. So the Tier 1 carriers, who originate most of the calls naturally because they're the ones that have all the retail customers, due to their size and buying power, they typically demand 30-30 payment terms. So that means an invoice once a month, and then you get 30 days to pay. So supplier A is essentially granting 60 days of financing to that Tier 1 carrier. So then supplier B may, for example, in turn provide 15-15 financing terms to supplier A, thus reducing A's financial exposure from 60 days to 30 days, and similarly C may offer 7-7 to B, the terms getting shorter and shorter as you move down the line, reducing B's requirement from 30 days to 16 days, and so on down the line to where maybe at the end it's prepay. Well, first of all, there's two different kinds of fraud. There's financial fraud and there's telecom fraud. So let's talk about financial fraud first. So credit fraud, for example, would be a customer with malice obtaining credit from a supplier with the intention of ramping that credit up over a period of time. And once they feel it's reached the maximum level, they'll just disappear.
That's interesting. So does social engineering work into fraud as well?
Yes, so the fraudsters also use social engineering techniques. We can't get into all kinds of telecom fraud in this session, that's beyond the scope of today's session, but I would at least like to talk about premium rate number fraud because it's probably the most costly and most prevalent.
What are premium rate numbers?
So premium rate numbers, you may not know it by that name, but you're probably familiar with the concept. Essentially what this is a private company would obtain a number range from a Tier 1 operator, ostensibly to provide, in my view, semi-legitimate services like horoscope or adult content. So what they're able to do once they obtain these numbers is they can create any rate plan they want. They could charge $5 a minute for the first minute, $3 a minute for every minute thereafter. So what the fraudsters then do is they cause as many calls to be directed to their numbers as possible because they get to collect the revenue for any call that's sent to those numbers. So they use various techniques to do that. So one technique is to use an IVR dialer. So what they do is they'll populate this dialer with a database of millions of numbers. They'll make millions of phone calls and they'll let that number ring like maybe once or twice and then they'll hang up. So they'll have no charge for making the calls.
So what's
but they know,
that?
well, because they know that there's some small percentage of the people who receive those calls will dial back on that missed call. In its current implementation, TessPay cannot stop all of that kind of telecom fraud. It completely eliminates the financial fraud. The telecom fraud, we can mitigate it, but with the cooperation of the Tier 1 carriers, I believe we could actually stop all of it. And that's currently $11 billion a year. So what's different in the TessPay model is instead of entering into these paper-based agreements, the carriers would instead enter into smart contracts with each other. And a smart contract is essentially a programmatic representation of a legal contract. So once that contract has been signed by both parties, it gets written to the blockchain and can't be changed by either party without mutual consent. So there's 3 different agreements on our platform. So there's the TessPay platform agreement, which was entered into by either a carrier and a lender and TessPay. So in the case of the smart contracts, this is entered into between the buying carrier and the selling carrier, and explains in legal terms how that smart contract will actually be executed. Now the nice thing is that the content of that document doesn't change from smart contract to smart contract, so the legal review really only has to happen once. And then the last thing is that if a supplier is financing or requires financing for a contract they've entered into, we have a lending agreement they have to enter, of course, between the lender and the carrier. So all the money in the TessPay platform goes to a special depository account that we have with Northern Trust. You first sign up an account. Of course, you start with a wallet with a zero balance. If lenders wish to finance transactions, they need to make wire transfers into the system to finance those transactions. The carriers that deliver services, they accrue revenue into their wallets and their account. So, of course, any carrier or lender can request a withdrawal from the system of any positive balance. And we'll deliver that the next business day by, bank wire transfer, ACH if it's here in the United States, or PayPal. This system is connected to the blockchain that the participants on our system will be able to query the blockchain and confirm that the aggregate of the wallet balances on the system actually match the real bank balance at Northern Trust. We have the customer portal, which is the user interface that allows the carriers and the lenders to create smart contracts, do their routing, request payments, lenders to approve transactions. We have the Telecom switch and billing system. These are two subsystems that are fully integrated with our portal. So the Telecom switch is a third-party system that we've integrated, a company called Catalea, and then the billing system is an American company here called Fastlane. Been in the industry for a long time. And then finally, we have the TessPay IBM blockchain. I mean, we needed a robust, scalable, trusted, private, and permissioned blockchain. And I have this little quote, something we felt that only IBM could reliably provide for the high volume of financial settlements TessPay would be processing on a daily basis. We wanted to partner with someone who really understood the business and understood the scale of business that we were dealing with here, because we're talking about trillions of phone calls.
So easiest 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we think that the benefit from using the system for the carriers, if they wish to participate, is as simple as interconnecting, creating smart contracts, and then collecting daily payments. So we certainly are not naive enough to think that we can go and attack all the rest of the other industry segments right now. But we'd like to think that once we've established ourselves in wholesale VoIP, that we could move next into the mobile roaming sector, which is actually a $500 billion market. It's about 10 times the size. And it also has the problems of fraud and other issues as well. And then who knows, down the road, perhaps into other industries, the same kind of concept could be used.
Using the
oil and gas,
technology.
energy, etc.